I want to talk to the person watching this who feels like they've disqualified themselves. Maybe you made a mistake at work that cost the company money and you're waiting to be fired. Maybe you snapped at your kids this morning and said things you can't take back. Maybe you fell back into a habit or an addiction you swore you were done with. Or maybe you made a promise to God, a big one, and you broke it publicly. And now you are sitting in the wreckage of that decision. You aren't just feeling guilt, you're feeling shame. And there's a difference. Guilt says, I made a mistake. Shame says, I am a mistake. If you are feeling that today, it feels like a system failure. It feels like your life has crashed. The screen has gone blue and there is no reboot button. You feel like you have to throw the whole computer away. The enemy is whispering one specific lie to you right now. He's telling you that your usefulness is over, that God can't use damaged goods, that you should just go back to doing whatever you were doing before you tried to be better. If that is you, I have some news of good things, some nuggets for you today. We are going to open the user manual, the Bible, to a specific case study of a man who crashed harder than you ever have. We are going to look at the anatomy of a comeback through the life of Peter in John chapter 21. Most people know Peter failed. He denied Jesus 3 times. But very few people pay attention to the specific protocol Jesus used to fix him. What happened on that beach isn't just a nice religious story. It is a tactical blueprint for how to execute a factory reset on your life when you think it's over. Pay careful attention to Peter's story and you'll see why failure is not a funeral. It's a setup for an upgrade. Let's dive in. To understand the comeback, we have to understand the crash. We have to look at the data. Peter wasn't just a casual follower. He was the loud one, the CEO of the disciples. He was the guy who stood up and said, Jesus, everyone else might leave you, but I will die for you. He was arrogant. He was so sure of his own performance. And then the pressure test came and he failed woefully. Not once, but 3 times. He denied he even knew Jesus. And the Bible says, when the rooster crowed, Peter went out and wept bitterly. That is the sound of a man who has lost all respect for himself. So, fast forward a few days. Jesus has risen from the dead, but Peter is still carrying this heavy shame. He doesn't know where he stands. So, what does he do? This is so important for us today. Look at John 21 verse 3. Peter looks at the other disciples and says 3 words, I'm going fishing. Now, to the casual reader, that sounds like he needed a hobby, like he needed a weekend off, you know? But you have to translate this. Peter was a fisherman before Jesus called him. Jesus had called him away from the nets to be a fisher of men. He had a new career, a new purpose. So when Peter says, I'm going fishing, he isn't taking a vacation, he is resigning. He's saying, I tried this disciple thing, I tried to be spiritual, I tried to lead, and I crashed. I broke the system, so I am going back to the only thing I know I'm good at. I'm going back to my old identity. I'm going back to my factory settings. How many of us do this? You mess up in your walk with God, so you dive into your career. You work 80 hours a week because at least at work, you know the rules. At least at work, you get a paycheck. You can control the outcome. Or you mess up in a relationship, so you go back to isolating yourself. You go back to the numbing habits, the scrolling, the eating, the drinking. We retreat to the familiar because the familiar feels safe, even if it's broken. We try to reinstall the old operating system because the new one just feels too hard. But there is the catch. Look at the rest of verse 3. They went out and got into the boat, but that night they caught nothing. These were professional fishermen. They knew that lake better than anyone. They worked all night, but they caught zero. The nets came up empty every single time. This brings us to our first nugget for today. Nugget number 1, the mercy of the empty net. Here is the truth. Your old life will stop working once you've tasted your new purpose. The empty net wasn't bad luck. It was God's severe mercy. God loves Peter too much to let him succeed at the wrong thing. Imagine if Peter had caught a record-breaking amount of fish that night. He would have said, "See, I'm good at this. I don't need Jesus. I don't need that pressure. I'm a fisherman." He would have settled for a good career instead of a great destiny. If you are running back to your old coping mechanisms right now and they aren't working anymore, if the work feels empty, if the scrolling feels draining, if the old relationships feel shallow, that is not God punishing you. It's not even life punishing you. That's just God jamming the gears of your old life so you can't go back. He is frustrating your retreat so you have to face your future. If you are hitting a wall today, that wall is a blessing. It's forcing you to turn around. So, the sun comes up, they are tired, they are hungry, they are ashamed, and they see a man on the shore. They realize it's Jesus. Peter, in his typical dramatic fashion, jumps in the water and swims to shore. Now, pause. Put yourself in Peter's shoes. What do you expect Jesus to do? Peter denied him 3 times. Peter abandoned him. Peter even went back to fishing after being told to lead. If this were a corporate performance review, Peter would be fired for gross negligence. If this were a typical religious interaction, Peter would be lectured on loyalty. But what do they find when they get to the beach? Verse 9 says, when they landed, they saw a fire of burning coals, there with fish on it and some bread. Jesus made them breakfast. He didn't greet them with a sermon. He greeted them with a sandwich. This is profound. When you are at your lowest, when you have messed up, you expect God to come with a heavy hand. You expect a "I told you so." But the user manual shows us something different about God's character. He sees they are tired. He sees they are hungry. He serves them. Why? Because shame thrives in exhaustion. You cannot have a holy conversation when your body is depleted. Jesus creates a safe environment first. He addresses the physical need before he touches the spiritual failure. But there is a detail here you cannot miss. The text says there was a fire of burning coals. Why does John mention the coals? He is a detail-oriented writer, that's for sure. Because the last time Peter stood around a fire of burning coals was in the courtyard of the high priest, the exact moment he denied Jesus. Smell is the strongest trigger for memory. Imagine the smell of that charcoal smoke hitting Peter's nose. It must have taken him right back to his worst moments. He's standing there, wet, shivering, smelling the smoke, remembering his failure. But this time, the fire isn't the setting of his failure, it's the setting of his fellowship. Jesus is rewriting the memory. He is taking the trigger, the fire, and turning it into a table of fellowship. This leads us to nugget number 2. Nugget number 2, the protocol of presence. Jesus invites you to bring your shame to the table, not hide it in the closet. Religion tells you to clean up before you come to God. It says, fix the glitch, then come back to the programmer. But the gospel says something different. It says, bring the glitch to the table. If you have messed up, your instinct is to hide, to stop praying, to stop going to church, to avoid God until you feel better. But the protocol for restoration is proximity. Jesus builds a fire right in the middle of your mess and says, come and eat. He doesn't need your apology yet. He needs your presence. The healing starts when you stop running and just sit down with him, even while you still feel dirty. So they eat. Silence on the beach. And then the surgery begins. Jesus turns to Peter. He doesn't ask, why did you do it? He doesn't ask, will you promise to do better next time? He doesn't ask for a plan. He asks just one question. Simon, do you love me? He asks it 3 times. Why 3? Because Peter denied him 3 times. Peter denied Jesus 3 times. So Jesus gives him 3 opportunities to affirm his love. He is mathematically cancelling out the debt. It's a painful process, but it's necessary. But notice the question. He doesn't ask about Peter's performance. He asks about Peter's heart. The world asks, did you do it right? Are you competent? God asks, do you love me? If Jesus had asked Peter, are you strong? Peter would have had to say no. If he asked, are you faithful? Peter would have had to say no. If he asked, are you a good leader? Again, Peter would have looked at the empty boat and said absolutely not. But when he asked, do you love me? Peter could look at his broken, messy, inconsistent heart and say, yes, you know all things. You know that I love you. And that was enough. Here is the truth you need to hear. Your restoration is not based on your track record. It is based on your relationship. You can have a terrible track record and still have a heart that loves God. And God can work with that. The user manual says that love covers a multitude of sins. The operating system of the kingdom is based on love, not accuracy. If you are sitting there thinking, I messed up too big, I can't fix this, you are right. You can't fix the past. But you can answer the question in the present. Do you love him? If the answer is yes, then you are still in the game. After each time Peter says, I love you, Jesus responds with a command. He didn't say, okay, good, now go sit in a corner and think about what you did for a year. He says, feed my sheep. This is the pivot. This is the now what. Peter probably wanted to sit in that moment, cry, apologize for a few more hours, and talk about his feelings. But Jesus cuts it short. He says, if you love me, get back to work. Feed my sheep. This brings us to nugget number 3. Nugget number 3, the service antidote. Service kills shame. As long as Peter is sitting on the beach thinking about Peter, he is trapped in shame. Shame is incredibly self-centered. It makes you obsessed with your failure, your weakness, your reputation. The moment Peter stands up and goes to help a sheep, he is free. He has to take his eyes off himself to focus on the sheep. The enemy wants you to stare at your navel and analyze your failure for the next 10 years. Jesus wants you to look up, see a need in the world, and meet it. You don't heal by thinking, you heal by doing. You heal by being useful again. Failure wants to make you self-absorbed. I am so bad, I'm so stupid. That is just pride, just in reverse. Redemption makes you others-focused. Redemption says, I am forgiven, so now I can help someone else. You messed up, okay. You retreated, okay. But Jesus is on the beach. He has breakfast ready. He isn't mad. He just has one question. Do you still love him? If the answer is yes, then you are not disqualified. Your mandate has not been cancelled. Here is your sticky nugget for the week, your action step. If you are drowning in regret today, I want you to use the Feed My Sheep protocol. Stop apologizing. Stop replaying the tape of your mistake in your head. Instead, find one person today who needs help. Send an encouraging text to a friend. Buy the person behind you a coffee. Help a coworker with a project they are drowning in. Serve your spouse or your kids without complaining. Do one act of service. It will break the cycle of shame faster than 100 hours of analyzing your past. Get your eyes off yourself and onto the sheep. That is where you will find your dignity again. This is the news of good things. Your failure was an event, not a destiny. Get up, wash your face, and go feed some sheep. If this video helped you find some hope today, please hit that like button and subscribe. I'd love to hear in the comments, what is one small way you are going to feed a sheep? Help someone else this week. Let's fill the comments with good news. Go and operate with purpose today.